So working holiday visas in Australia, they can be a little bit complicated when you arrive. You might not know what to do, you might not know what to get started with, the first steps you need to take, and yeah, it might just seem like a lot to deal with. But in today's video, I'm gonna go through the process that you need for when you arrive in Australia, all the little bits that you have to get sorted. For you guys who, have just landed, or you might be going very soon, and you need a bit of help with the steps that you need to take, because I'm not gonna lie, when I moved to Australia, I hardly had a clue about that I had to do any of this stuff. But yeah, get a pen and paper, make a list, and then that way you can arrive in Australia and be stress-free, knowing that you're gonna have all these steps covered and you're gonna be able to get set up very, very easily. And also, you don't have to be on a working holiday visa. That's just the visa that I went on, so I can speak from personal experience. But if you move into Australia in general, no matter what visa, you're gonna need a lot of these steps as well. So yeah, stay tuned. So this is about arriving in Australia. I'm not gonna tell you any of the steps before going to Australia. I have done videos on that, the steps that you need to take before you actually move, but we're gonna start from when you first arrive in Australia. So the first thing I would recommend doing is getting your SIM card sorted, so you can have data and accept calls and stuff like that in Australia. You definitely want to do this before you start applying for any jobs, any houses, anything like that, because people need to be able to contact you, you need to be able to call them, and also just having data and stuff is definitely handy. We were with Vodafone in Australia. I thought generally it was pretty decent value for money as well. I got quite a bit of data when I was there. Pretty much got that set up one of the first days we arrived there. The sooner you get that set up, the better. So yeah, SIM card is the first thing. The next thing you need to get sorted is a tax file number, or TFN. You need to have a tax file number before you start any job in Australia. It's basically, so you can get taxed. I think you can work without a tax file number, but you'll get taxed like ridiculously high, like 50% or something. So you need to apply for your tax file number online. Just type in tax file number application online. Generally it's pretty quick. The only thing is with the tax file number is they send the number out actually in the post. You don't get it sent online. We got it sent in the post, so whether you're staying at a hostel or whether you've already got a house, your letter will be sent to that address. So you need to make sure you're staying somewhere, which you will be, you're not fucking homeless. Like, you need to make sure you're staying somewhere for your letter with your tax file number to get sent out, and when that arrives you can start working basically. Another important thing that you need to do in Australia is set up a bank account. You don't necessarily have to do this straight away, especially if you've got an international bank card. So I have a Monzo card, and for the first couple of weeks in Australia I was just using my Monzo card. However, to actually get paid in Australia, you do need to have an Australian bank account, not an international card. So when I got a job, I then had to set up my bank account. So I went with NAB. There's lots of different banks in Australia. Commonwealth Bank I think is quite good, but I went with NAB. So getting your bank account set up is pretty quick. And then once you've done that, you can actually start to get paid from a job. The next thing that you need to get set up is your superannuation. This is basically like a pension fund, and what it is a percentage of every paycheck you get actually goes into your superannuation. Like, I don't know, I'm not sure what it is, like 3-5% or something. And it's like a pension thing. So when you eventually leave Australia in the future, you will get that money back, but you need to set that up. I went with Slate Super in Sydney. There's loads of different ones you can go with, but that's the one I went with. And just a percentage of your income will go to that, but you will get that back in the future. I don't know if you get it all back. I think you might just get a percentage of it back, but you need to get that set up before you start working as well. The next steps is to get set up with your house and your job. Generally I would recommend going for a house first, for a number of reasons. One, because for me at least, the idea of going to work and then coming back to a hostel room really didn't. We've done that once, and it's not that nice. It's nice to come back to your own place, come back to a nice house after a long day at work, rather than coming back to a hostel. So I would recommend getting a house first. However, you might not have a choice. You might get a job a lot quicker than a house, in which case, go for the job. Now, it does depend what you want to do in Australia. Once you've done them first steps, you might want to do a bit of traveling. You might want to see a few places in the country, which I would definitely recommend doing if you get the chance. But if you're looking to get set up, then yeah, get set up with a house and job for sure as soon as possible. But yeah, if you want to travel, then I definitely recommend you do so. So a few points of advice for your first couple of weeks in Australia. Number one is just, it sounds obvious, but just be conscious of how much you're spending in that first couple of weeks, because you're so excited arriving in a new country and stuff like we were. We felt like we were on holiday and we just didn't really think that much about spending money. And little mistakes we made, such as getting a taxi from the airport. Realistically, you could probably get an Uber for like $20, $30 for the journey we were doing, but we ended up spending about $90 on this taxi. Little mistakes like that. Don't get a taxi from the airport, get an Uber or a bus, public transport definitely. Don't spend $90 on a taxi the minute you arrive. And yeah, we just went a bit like, we weren't crazy with money, but we weren't careful, that's for sure, which I guess was good. But you need to be careful, because especially if you haven't got a job yet in Australia, sometimes it can take quite a few weeks to actually get set up with a job, so you don't want to put yourself under too much stress. You want to, be able to have enough money to still be comfortable. Don't spend it all in the first couple of weeks, that's for sure. Especially because when you go for a house, sometimes the start-up cost for a house is quite a lot. Usually they'll ask for a security bond, which can be upwards of $1,000. As well as that, they might ask for the first few weeks rent or something. So sometimes you can end up spending a few $1,000s, $1,000 or $2,000 on when you first get a house. So yeah, you want to make sure you've got enough for that. I would also recommend staying in hostels, that's for sure. One, because it's going to keep the cost down. It's a lot cheaper in hostels than it is in hotels or houses or anything like that. And also, when you first arrive in Australia, it's a great way to meet other backpackers. Yeah, meet other people, socialise. The hostels often do events. They might do tours. Even the hostels sometimes can actually help you get jobs and stuff. And yeah, it's a good way to meet people for sure. So I would definitely recommend for your first few weeks staying in a hostel. And also travel if possible. That's what I recommend. I didn't actually travel when I went to Australia straight away. I worked in Sydney for about 4 months, but I did do quite a bit of travelling after that. But if I were to go back to Australia again from the start, like I did last time, I would probably travel straight away, because the money that we spent in Sydney, just kind of going out, having a bit of fun, we could have used that money for traveling and then ended up finding a place which we liked even more. So I probably would have traveled straight away. And if you guys have got the money to do so, I would definitely recommend doing some traveling before you get set up in Australia. But that's just a personal opinion. If you want to get set up with work straight away and just smash through some work, definitely do that. It's up to you really. If I were to go back, I probably would do a few weeks of traveling. So they are the main bits that you need to know when getting set up in Australia. There's a few other little things, but nothing major. If you get them things set up that I mentioned today, then you are all good to start your journey in Australia, start working, start traveling, all that kind of thing. And it really isn't, too much more complicated. Once you know the steps, it's a lot easier, rather than like, I'm pretty sure it took me like a week to realize we needed a tax file number. I had no idea what a superannuation was. I was like, what is all this stuff? But with this video now, you'll have an idea of things that you need to do. So I wish you all the best on your journey in Australia. It's the best place and you're gonna have the time of your life living there, that's for sure. If you need any other help with moving abroad, things that I didn't cover in this video, I've released a full moving abroad guide. I'll leave it on the screen there. I'll leave the link in the description to the guide, and it will cover everything you need to know to save you Googling things. And yeah, all the questions you may have will be answered in that guide. So feel free to check that out. Yeah, have the best time in Australia. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon with another video.